Chapter 1. Nothing was the same, nor would it likely ever be. But what, mind you, does that really mean? Same. Same as what? Perhaps a more plausible desire would be normalcy. At least, some sort of it. Even then, change was what was normal. Change is the only constant in life. Well, that with death and taxes. There sure had been a lot of death, the measure of which being incomparable to the greatest of human tragedies on the largest possible historical scale. Taxes were not going to get anyone out of this mess. There would have to be a complete reset, a wipe of the system. But reset to what? A red-blooded American libertarian would say the Constitution. But could a almost 300-year-old document still hold any relevance in this brand new world? Did individual liberty and free speech even matter when there were so few people left? These were some of the thoughts which would run through Gavin's mind as he sat in front of his computer screen in a secret government bunker in a location unknown to but a few outside of the agency. The term agency was not meant only as an adjective. It was the only identification, possessing no other name because it was so secret. The employees did not even have to file taxes because not even the IRS knew the agency existed. Gavin Newsom was a young man, 22 years old and of average height. At 5'7" since middle school, he was head and shoulders above his classmates until 11th grade, when they caught up with him and he was once again able to blend in with the crowd fairly easily. He was freckled-faced and red-headed, with the customary ivory skin of an Irishman. His was extra pale, having been stuck underground for several years. The members of the agency, there being only a few hundred, were a rare breed. Most of them were young, in their 20s, tech types poached from Google and Facebook back in the day. They were completely different than the recruits back in the early days. Gavin's chief job, as well as most agency employees, as best as he knew, since you were not supposed to even talk about your work with anyone outside of your department, was to gather domestic and foreign intelligence, primarily foreign in his case, on anything and everything. The groundwork for such spying programs was laid by the CIA, expanded by the Patriot Act, and refined by the NSA. Yet none of these agencies could even come close to the expertise and apparatus of the agency. Gathering intelligence on everyone used to be a lot harder when there were a lot more people alive. But lately the workload had fallen off by at least a third. Gavin had been with the agency for 3 years, starting when he was just 19 years old. All of the analysts were young, but when he started, Gavin was the youngest. He had graduated from MIT when he was 15 years old. He had been writing computer code since the age of 6, and had been hacking corporate and eventually government networks since he was 11. And he never got caught. At least, not until he was 19. At that point, it was either spend more than a decade in jail or work for the government. He chose the latter. At times, Gavin wondered if he had made the right choice. Even before everything changed in the world, he was completely isolated. He worked, ate, slept, and went to the doctor all in this underground city. He had not left it in 3 years. In fact, other than the operations department, no one had. Now, they don't tell you this at the job interview. They sell you on patriotism and the amenities. They never tell you that you will be unable to leave. You find that out after your first day of work when you swipe your access card, now an implanted microchip, to leave the building, and it's denied. It was all the same to Gavin. He did not have any friends or family to speak of, not any alive, that is. His biological father had abandoned the family when Gavin's mom was pregnant with him. Gavin had never met who his mom referred to as the sperm donor. Gavin's mother said, especially when angry at Gavin, that he was just like his father. His birth mother had died of breast cancer when he was 7 years old, and Gavin was thrown into the foster system. He was probably better off since his mom had been a crackhead who prostituted herself to support the habit. He never had a connection with any of his initial foster parents, though they were nice enough. He retreated into cyberspace, more specifically the dark web. It was here that he made his home. He was comfortable and accepted. At the age of 12, he came to live with a very nice couple. They were Margaret and Joseph Newsom of the Wisconsin Newsoms, a wealthy oil family. He was their only ward, and they treated him like a son. Gavin came to love them very deeply. They were the only ones who really recognized his potential. They supported him through MIT and even talked about adoption. In fact, the appointment with the judge was set 3 days away when Margaret and Joseph were tragically killed on their way to church when a truck driver fell asleep at the wheel. Gavin wasn't with them that morning because he was sick, or at least he said he was. In truth, he really wasn't into the whole religion thing, so he lied to get out of going. For a long time, he was ate up with guilt at the last thing he had said to his parents, for he saw them as such and took to calling himself Newsom after their death. The last thing he said to them was a lie, and despite the counseling the foster system provided, his grief led to his return to hacking and his shunning of religion. This was a very dark season of his life. He was now a malicious hacker who went by the moniker Blasphemous Bastard. But Gavin did not like to remember those times. Suddenly, back in the real world, an alert came up on his screen. A target had been confirmed. Gavin quickly jotted down the info summary and created the retrieval code to take to his supervisor. An informant somewhere near Wilmington, North Carolina, had information about an enemy cell in the vicinity of Carolina Beach. That was all Gavin knew, since only his supervisor could access the full report.